What's up, Met fans? Welcome back to season 2, episode 2 of the Shea podcast. I am Lou, that is Vin, and we took a couple weeks off, but we are back because a lot has stuff has happened with the Mets since our last episode. Vinny and I are gonna break it all down, but first, please hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you give this video a big thumbs up and turn on those notifications so you'll get an update every time we drop a new video. So let's go. Let's talk about it. This is episode 2 of the Shea podcast. A lot has happened since the last time we jumped on the podcast and talked about our Mets. In our previous episode, we talked all about the crazy negative stuff that happened with this team in the beginning of the
Was a
offseason,
lot.
but a lot, definitely a lot. But today we are here to talk nothing but positive. Today's a positive episode. We are looking into the 2026 season, and we are going to break down all of the moves that both Steve Cohen and David Stern have made over the last couple of weeks. So, starting off today's episode, we want to talk about the acquisition and the signing of new first baseman, replacing Pete Alonso, Polanco. So, Vin, thoughts on the signing at first base?
All right. Well, I like the signing. I'm just not sure about at first base. A lot's been made that he's played one game in his career at first base, which is actually, if you go back and look, it was one pitch, one inning that Polanco played at first base. So, I like Polanco. He's a veteran hitter. He hit right around 260, 270 last year. Hit close to 30 home runs. I think at the time, one thing I'll never forgive, and like it's going to be a positive episode, but one thing I'll never forgive is letting Pete Alonso walk. But I do like Polanco as a player. I think he brings a lot of upside to this team in a clubhouse that we heard negative things about last year. You never heard anything bad about Polanco, so this might be something that they need. Whether he could transition to first, I'm pretty confident he can because it wasn't like, back in the day, you remember, Lou, when we tried to watch Mike Piazza play first or guys like
Right.
that. This
Mhm.
is a shortstop, so it might be a little easier transition for him. So I like the Polanco signing. I think it's a guy that they need and a presence in the lineup.
I agree. I think he brings a different approach to that first base position when it comes to his at bats and how he approaches every at bat. It's more of a let's keep the line moving sort of approach instead of that pure power swing and miss approach. So I do like the signing of Polanco. And like you said, the only thing that concerns me is David Stearns' motive, his intentions this offseason was to improve that defense and
Yeah.
defensive runs saved. And when you replace a guy like Pete Alonso, who wasn't great in the field, we all know that, but you replace him with somebody who's never played first, we're going into the season with a question mark in terms of defensive run saves at first base. So
Well,
I
the
agree
the
with
one
you.
thing I will give Pete is we know he couldn't throw.
Mm,
We know he had his problems fielding.
yeah.
But to his credit, he was very, very good around the bag.
Right.
Saved a lot of errors on balls in the dirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
we'll see.
yeah, listen, I trust Polanco. He is a big leaguer. He's a proven big leaguer, and I think that transition will be something that we continue to see, especially in spring training. As
Right.
we get down to Port St. Lucie and we start to see some content and some videos coming out about him, in those preseason games down in Port St. Lucie. So definitely a good signing there. I'm going to skip around a little bit, Vin, because I feel like with the topic of defense, let's hop over to the hot corner and let's talk about the big one. Right when losing out on Kyle Tucker, the Mets needed to do something. And what they decided to do was pivot immediately after a guy who we admired, who we rooted for since the moment he got called up, and that's Bo Bichette. So with Bo comes, good defense. He's definitely a great shortstop, but now he's going to be playing the hot corner for the Mets. Thoughts on the signing by David Stearns to bring in All Star Bo Bichette?
He hit a home run with this one. I think this was unbelievable. It was something that we didn't hear about at all, right? We heard from the days leading up to and right up until the night before. I really think that Stearns and Cohen thought that Tucker was a Met. I think that, if they were betting men, that they would have, put a good amount that Tucker was going to be in Queens. But to pivot the way they did. And the one thing Stearns does well is he keeps everything kind of close to the vest because as the days went on, we heard that there was talks with Bichette and there was sort of a groundwork put in place. But to lose out on Tucker and then the next day sign a guy like Bo Bichette, who what was the big problem last year? Guys in scoring position and a runner on third. Less than 2 outs. How many times did we see a strikeout? This guy throughout his career is right around 370, 380 with runners in scoring position. It's
Right.
unbelievable.
Mhm.
So, this is nothing but amazing bringing in a guy like Bo Bichette. He's a winner. He knows how to win. He's had experience. So I absolutely, without a doubt, love the signing of Bo Bichette. And a caveat and a bonus was stealing him from Philly.
That's the point I was just about to make. And not only do we like what Bo Bichette brings with his approach at the plate, but like you said, the fact that Philadelphia thought that they had the opportunity to land this bat to pair him with that lineup that they have leading
Yeah.
with Bryce Harper, we were able to swoop in at the final minute and get that deal done. So really, kudos to Steve Cohen and David Stearns for they could have easily sat back and kind of chalked up the offseason once losing Kyle Tucker. And they continued to be aggressive. And and like Vin, you mentioned it once before, you posted about it on the page. When we're wrong, we're wrong.
Yeah.
And Vinny and I were both, and we no problem saying it. We didn't believe that David Stearns had that in him in terms of going out and being super aggressive and making those moves in order to put a winning contender on the field with so much unknown coming next season. So really good job by the front office. Kudos to David Stearns to go out and get a guy like Bo Bichette. That kind of, I mean, the Polanco move was nice, but the Bo Bichette move really got the fans
Yeah.
going again and put another direction for this season. Not
I
looking
think
into the
that's the one
future.
that's a lineup changer right there. That's a game changer
100%.
bringing in Bo Bichette.
100%. So great moves there at the both corners, bringing in Polanco and Bo Bichette.
I know it's
There
coming
was
next.
just so much. There was just so much that have happened over the last couple of weeks. I just have a list here. So we briefly talked about Polanco, we talked about Bichette, and now's the big one.
The one that we love.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody knows if you've been following us, we used to do before we were an official podcast, Vinny and I, and a couple of our friends, we always went live during the season to talk about our team. And one guy in Lubob that we always praised coming up as a prospect with the Chicago White Sox, we saw the 5 tool ability of this guy in Luis Robert. And yeah, I mean,
We run a
Vinny and I,
giveaway?
sure, if that's up to you, up to you. But Vinny and I are both big believers in Luis Robert and what he brings, both defensively and offensively to a team. Now, with that, Vin, there's been many question marks when it comes to Luis Robert. His biggest question is his health. Being in a team with the Chicago White Sox, who at one point, Vinny, you and I both believed were on their way to turning their franchise around. They had a really
Yeah,
good lineup for a couple of seasons, but quickly they diminished into a shell of themselves. And Luis Robert was that last man standing on that team. And we don't know what goes into the mindset of a player when the daily grind of 162 sets in. And Luis Robert wasn't connected to baseball. You could
absolutely not. We've heard it.
yeah, you could see it in his body language. You could see it in his day-to-day play. Nothing brings the best out in a player than being motivated. And putting him in this locker room with Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Polanco, Marcus Simeon, who has been
Yeah.
talked about as a extremely good clubhouse guy. I can't wait to see what Luis Robert brings to this team, knowing he doesn't have to be the superstar that he had to be in Chicago.
I think, just before I touch on Lubov, I think you bringing up Simeon in the clubhouse, I think the interesting dynamic there is how much they loved each other in Toronto when Bo Bichette and Marcus Simeon played together. I think that'll bring itself to the Mets clubhouse. But as far as Lubov, man, I mean, I'm I could be wrong. This is just speculation. It's not like I talk to anybody but just, from my eyes and watching baseball for a long time, this was a guy that last year wanted to be traded, wanted out of Chicago. You could tell by his body language right up until the deadline. This guy went on an absolute tear. I think he hit over 300 in the second half of the season. And then right after the White Sox came out and said that they weren't trading him, he got hurt or
Correct.
he got hurt and he didn't play another game the rest of the season. So I think this is a guy instantly the best defensive center fielder we've probably had since Beltron
Yeah,
in terms of all around defense, throwing, getting to the ball, making the play.
he's
I
already
think
better
this
than
is a
McGarry.
guy, yeah, I
Yeah,
think this is a guy that has a chance to really, what's the word I'm looking for? Kinda adhere himself, to Mets
rejuvenate.
fans, and I think this is a guy that if he's going right and I'm not saying this isn't us expecting some type of, 10-step jump. If
Right,
Lubob is Lubob that we've seen, I think this is a guy that Mets fans will absolutely fall in love with.
100%.
and he's a stolen base threat. And now the it's kinda like flip of a coin because we heard so much about run save, run prevention, all this. We wanna stop runs. And up the middle, the Mets are as good as anybody in baseball defensively when you look at Lindor, Simeon, and Lubob.
Yeah,
And then all the question marks are on the corners.
right.
So with Polanco, Bichette, Soto, and Beatty, is Beatty gonna start in left field or is it gonna be Benj on opening day?
Yeah.
Up the middle, and we know that's where you have to be your strongest, and
Yep.
Lubob is gonna be that guy to really anchor down the outfield, and I said it on the other 2 moves. I love this move. I can't love it enough, and in a way, I'm happy for Acuna because it seemed like he just kept getting blocked, and I am an Acuna supporter, and he's a kid that I hope goes to Chicago and plays well.
Yeah.
Nothing against that kid.
No,
Nothing but love for him, and but Lou Bob is a guy that you have to go and make when you're trying to put a contender on the field.
I agree. So, I definitely agree. And like you said, I do like Acuna. What he did at the end of 24 when Lindor was going through that little bit of a back issue, really kept us going, really kept that
Yeah,
line moving and really bringing in that next man mentality up. And he did great for us. He was serviceable when we needed him. He was there, brought great energy off the bench. But like you said, when you have so many position players, and there's a
right.
backlog, we have to be willing to let some of these young kids go for major league talent, and that's what we did in terms of Luis Robert. So just rounding out the lineup, Vin, it's gonna be interesting to see. I think this is it. I think this will be the majority of the opening day lineup. I can't see any other big moves coming to really add to this lineup. But we posted about it. Mendoza said that he projects he sees that top of the lineup being Lindor, Soto, Bichette. I agree with that at this
I
moment.
agree too.
Yeah, I agree with that. You have to put some protection behind Soto. Not knowing who the true four hitter is would have been nice to be Pete Alonso, but he's not there. But I like Lindor, Soto, Bichette because if those guys get on, nobody hits better than Bo Bichette with men on base.
Right. That's your big RBI guy as of right now, and let's not
Right.
forget last season, we saw a different side of Soto where he stole almost 40 bases.
Yep.
So, he may not replicate that, but between him and Lindor getting on base, possibly stealing 30 bases each, now you got Bo Bichette coming up even more with runners in scoring position.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a big thing, and I couldn't agree more that I think Bo Bichette is the absolutely perfect 3 hitter,
Mhm.
and Soto's a great 2 hitter.
Yeah. Don't I trust Mendoza? I don't think he's gonna mess with it. I love Lindor in the leadoff spot. I really don't wanna
Yeah,
mess with him there. Since we put him there, he has been nothing but amazing. So just keep him in the leadoff spot. He earned it. He's proven to keep it. Then go Soto and Bichette. But we'll go from there. And then however they round up the rest of the lineup, that'll be
yeah.
mixed and match.
I think Polanco might end up 4, and then
Yeah.
after that, 5 through 9, you kinda mix and match early in the season to see where guys are comfortable.
Can you see Vientos in the 4th spot at the D?
To me, I don't know if it'll happen. To me, guys like Vientos and Mauricio, these guys are expendable if you wanna
Yeah.
go get another pitcher or if you wanna go get a Steven Kwan type guy,
Right.
because as much as me and you love Lubob, he might be one and done with us. And then you
100%.
regardless, you have Carson Bench in the outfield the following season. Carson Bench is still young enough where I'm not worried about that type of stuff with him, but,
Right.
I think those guys are expendable, and there is the one guy left on the market that I personally, hold in very high regard, and I think if they could find a way to go maybe 2 years, 40 million for Eugenio Suarez. This guy hit 49 home runs last year, drove in 120. I think you put that guy in the 4 spot in this lineup, I think that's a game wrecker.
Yeah.
Not only
Yeah.
for the home runs,
Even
but it's a threat.
So Vin, even if you give if we're a couple weeks to a week out of spring training and this guy still isn't signed, I would be okay giving him the 1 year super high AAV.
Yeah, 1 year, 30 million.
Why not? It's 1 year. What's the commitment?
I agree.
I feel like that's the one spot in this lineup that we're missing is that four hitter.
Yeah.
And Suarez would be a great addition to that. I like Suarez there better than they were talking about adding somebody to go in that four hole, but I didn't like the move. I like the Suarez move better. So I agree with you. I think Suarez would be a great addition to this team. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But
I mean, look, it took
unbelievable.
a while for us to sign JD Martinez 2 years ago,
Yeah.
a
Yeah, that's a
and
great point.
Suarez just keeps falling back and falling back, and I think, if this team I really believe, and you said it in the open, we were really down on this team early in the offseason. We were down on Stearns, down on Cohen, but I think there's 2 guys sitting out there right now that make the Mets they take them from a very good team, which I think they are now, and they will compete this year, to a team that let's go, pound the Dodgers now. Let's go blow for blow with them. And if you sign Eugenio Suarez to DH for this team and you pony up and you sign Framber Valdez, I think those 2 guys, those aren't guys that are, I don't wanna say scared, that's not the right word when you come to, professional athletes, but I feel like those are the 2 guys that look at the Dodgers and say, "Screw them.
They're competitors. I mean, they're
Let's
dogs,
let's
you
get in
know?
let's go, let's go brawl this out." And
Yeah.
that's what we want.
Yeah, we need that. We haven't had that over the last couple of years due to reported locker room, controversy, locker room,
Yeah.
disconnect. So yeah, man, I agree. Bringing up Fernando Valdez, I think that's a good pivot to switch over to probably the biggest and most important move of the offseason. And that's, ace pitcher Freddie Peralta. We know the history between Stearns and the Milwaukee Brewers is a long one, and we know that Stearns has the connection with Milwaukee, and also he has a strong connection to Freddie Peralta himself.
Right.
So when making the trade, Vin, me and you have been somebody that has quote unquote fallen in love with these prospects, and especially this minor league system that we have right now. A lot of these kids have proven to be worthy of the rankings that they are. But letting go of Jet Williams and Brendan Sproat for a guy like Freddie Peralta, that really sends a message to say that this isn't a stopgap year. It's time to go and compete, to get back into the playoffs. Because you mentioned it once before, and I'll let you elaborate on it. I think Steve Cohen took it personally when we lost that last playoff spot to the Cincinnati Reds. So go ahead, Vin, give us your thoughts on the Freddie Peralta move and what does that do for the potential rotation on opening day?
I mean, we needed a guy like this. I'll put this out there. This is the best ace we've had since DeGrom. This guy who's, I'm looking at his numbers right now, 17-6 last year, 2.7 ERA, starts 30 games every season. And you brought up Sproat and Jet. I like Sproat. I
Yeah.
do. But
Mhm.
in this game, you got to give to get. And I saw something right before the trade actually that I believe, and guys out there could fact check me, if Jet Williams didn't get called up to the major leagues, he was Rule 5 eligible.
Right.
So we might not have seen him this year, and there's the possibility we lose him for nothing. Now, like Peralta, it's again, he's a game changer. You go into a playoff series with Peralta and McLean. If McLean takes that next step as your 1-2, that's as good a punch as anybody.
Yeah.
We saw Peralta pitch very well against the Dodgers last postseason. I think you had to get this guy. He's a workhorse, and it's an A-plus move. And I think Sproat's gonna go there and he's gonna have his time. But like you said, and I've always been for this. If it's not a Bryce Harper, if it's not a Fernando Tatis, if it's not these can't miss prospects, you gotta trade them when you have a chance to bring in a guy like a Freddie Peralta. And I think this is another one that Stearns hit a home run on. I think this is a great move for a young, pretty much young rotation when you
Yeah.
look at what the Mets are looking for in the future with Tong and McLean.
Right.
Now, this is another veteran presence who knows how to win games.
A lot of the comments that we received and when we posted about the deal being done is it's a 1 year rental. And yes, we understand that. I'm really not a big fan of 1 year rentals, but in this situation, with the past and the relationship that David Stearns has with Freddie Peralta, and just from what you heard him say over the last couple of days, doing different interviews, it sounds like he's open to signing that extension with
Yeah.
us. And hopefully Stearns and Cohen can get that done because having him anchor this rotation takes a lot of pressure off guys like Tong and McLean. Having that true ace pitcher, really drive the engine when it comes to this starting rotation.
Yeah, I think this was a move that had to be done if you're serious about competing. And I like what you said about how Cohen was kind of pissed off about losing that last playoff spot. Think another thing that got Cohen really annoyed was the Kyle Tucker thing because Steve Cohen offered this guy a boatload of money, right? And he basically turned around and said, "I don't care. Screw you. I'm going to the Dodgers." And I think Steve Cohen was at the point where, well, now I'm going to, if I have to go shorter years and a higher AAV for certain guys, I'm not losing them anymore. And we saw that with Bichette. And I think they know they knew what was going on with the fan base. They knew how disgruntled and pissed off a lot of fans were. They didn't just cancel Amazing Day for no reason.
Yeah, listen, they read the room, right?
Right.
They read the room of the offseason, and they read they felt the temperature check when it came to what they did in the beginning of the offseason. And they knew that fans were upset with what they did. But Vin, me and
Yeah.
you talked about it, and I think we talked about it on the live. They had to rip the band-aid off. And it's never a good feeling when the band-aid is ripped off. But how they responded and what they did to end this, getting into the preseason here in the spring training, they really bounced back in a good way. Did I think David Stearns had it in him? I didn't. I thought this was going to be a punt year. I have no problem saying I'm on record thinking that this was going to be a punt year, but I was absolutely wrong. And, like you said, we're one move away from really competing with the Dodgers and
Yeah.
more Valdez than Suarez. But if any of those guys are added to this team, it's go time. It's
And
go
the plus is, between, Stearns and was it why am I thinking Brody Van Wagenen? Was he before Stearns? That built helped build up the farm system?
I believe so.
Either way, they
Yeah.
still have a surplus of prospects and guys that are major league ready, that if the deadline approaches and the Mets are right on the cusp or have a few game lead in the playoff spot, you never know what's gonna happen. Names always come up and guys get moved at the deadline and the Mets will still be this season with a chance to compete, and there'll be a chance to, trade because they'll still have the prospects, and they'll
Right.
still have the major league talent, whether it be a Beatty or a Mauricio
Yeah.
or Vientos or whatever it is to go out and add a piece like just to throw a name out there. Mason Miller,
Yeah.
we've heard it. And I get the frustration early in the offseason. I was one of the people calling to boycott City Field. I
Yeah.
have no
Yeah.
problem admitting it.
Yeah.
And like I said, the only one that I kind of won't forgive is Alonso.
I agree.
I think Diaz, I don't wanna say what I really think about him
Well, yeah,
on the
yeah,
show.
he had a lot to say going walking out the door, and every player has the right to be where they want to play, and it was just time to move on. But once again, Stearns saw the writing on the wall, and he didn't wait. You don't
No.
want to be here. I'm going to get the best closer available in Devin
Yeah.
Williams.
I think Devin Williams and Luke Weaver are very good signings. And,
Yeah,
excuse me, don't sleep on Tobias Myers as part of that Freddie Peralta deal. I like that kid. We saw
yeah,
him up close and personal. He shut
yeah.
us out in the wild card game.
And I know it was a minor league deal, but if this guy, if
Craig Kimbrell.
thank you. If Craig Kimbrell pans out and he makes that major league roster on opening
Yeah.
day,
Just be decent.
having that veteran leadership in the bullpen
Yeah.
could be huge. Even if he doesn't pitch every day, just having him lead that bullpen with those young kids can be
Right.
tremendous for them.
Just be decent. You don't gotta be Craig Kimbrell of 2010.
Right, right. So, those are all the big moves, Vin. So we talked about Polanco, we talked about losing out on Tucker, but flipping into Bo Bichette. We talked about our guy Luis Robert, and then the big move for Freddie Peralta. Overall, Vin, and we're gonna wrap up the episode in a couple minutes. If you had to put a grade on this offseason to David Stearns and Steve Cohen, what would you well, we don't know if it's over yet, but as of right now, what would your grade be for the Mets this offseason at this point?
As of right now, I'd say right around a B, B plus.
Okay.
And the reason being, like I said, I'll never forgive they could win the World Series next year, and
Mhm.
in my heart, I still won't forgive letting Pete Alonso go. I think I don't know the exact phrase I'm looking for, but when you talk about run prevention and all that, and we spoke about this previously, don't preach run prevention and come into a season when, as of right now, you have Beatty in left field, Bichette who never played third, Polanco who never played first, and Soto in right field. Just tell us that you're gonna try to put a competitive team out there or something along those lines,
Yeah.
and I'll respect that more, because when you tell me run prevention, I wanna see 5, 6 Gold Glovers on the field, but, like you said, I was very, very hard on him early in the offseason, trading Nimmo, trading McNeil, which I didn't care about, but letting Diaz go, letting Alonso go, but the what's that saying? The comeback is greater than the setback?
Yeah. Yeah.
And David Stearns did really well after I think McNeil was the last move of that group,
Right.
right? I think it was,
Yeah.
Nimmo trade, then Diaz, Alonso, and then McNeil was the trade. I think after that, he put together one of the better rosters in the National League. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. No, I can't do anything but agree with that, and it's gonna be interesting to see how we go into spring training, and then the very last topic I wanna say, because one of our loyal and awesome listeners did ask the question when I jumped on the pre-show live: "What prospect or what young player can you see making this opening day roster out of spring training?"
I mean, off the top of my head, gotta say Carson Benj.
Has to be Benj, right, at this
Yeah,
point?
I know they love
Yeah,
him. I wouldn't consider putting McLean or Tong in that position because we saw them already. Yeah, I think it's gotta be Benj,
I agree.
right? I mean, he's their top gun right now. He's their version of what, Pete Crow Armstrong was. And I think the guy that they really love, and we got to see him in person, and I do like him a little bit down the line. At some point in the year, we might see Clifford,
Clifford?
possibly next season, but, I think as of this moment, it's gotta be Carson Benj.
Very cool. And my not for the opening day roster, but I think a guy who we can see maybe make a spot start here and there if if we may need it. I love the kid Santucci. I think he just brings major. He brings some real major league stuff. He pounds the strike zone. We saw him pitch a couple of times, both in Brooklyn and when the Rumble Ponies played the Somerset Yankees. So yeah, so those are two guys that we think will make the team.
Wettinger's another one.
Wettinger, yep.
That's another guy.
So big shout out to our listener who asked that question. So Vin, we're at the half hour mark. I think we're gonna wrap it up here. What a turnaround from episode one
Yeah.
to episode two of season two of the podcast. So we'll definitely keep you guys posted. Thank you so much for all the support. Remember, please subscribe, share this video with your friends, share the page with your friends. We appreciate all of you. We'll see you guys next time from the Shea Podcast.
Let's go Mets.